Alrighty. Um, I'm going to go ahead and get the show on the road here. So tonight is story 50 out of 104. So we're almost halfway through the history. And tonight's story is brought to you in part by dpwr.net for the Denis dates, uruarchives.com for the surface history corresponding to the Denis dates, and the Cavernian Calendar Converter, which was written by Brett Middleton of the Fuzzy Physics Institute for converting between Denis and surface time. Tonight's story is from Mist, the Book of Tiana. As we've progressed through the stories of the kings, we saw many changes in the Denis culture. We've seen an austere lifestyle that began with King Rinaref, supplanted by greed and avarice that began with King Shomat. We've seen devotion to Yavo in a single faith, supplanted by diverse religions and religious beliefs numbering over 2,000, diminishing to just a handful by the end of King Kareth's reign. Because of the writings of a martyred, self-proclaimed prophet named Gish, we saw their belief system being hijacked and steered away from the words and teachings of Yavo. And with King Jaron, Kareth's grandfather, we saw how the classes became the most divided that they ever had been in their history. Yet the more violent factions in Denis decided to follow Yavo more closely and hope for a peaceful solution for their differing point of view regarding the outsiders. Gish's writings resulted in a conservative culture within Denis society, a culture that it held the Arotanti, or outsiders, with great disdain and contempt. This general attitude among the Denis was another contributing factor in the demise of a once great empire. We looked at the Midis War, which occurred during the early 8th millennium of Denis history. It was a war that was, once again, started by violent factions who were vehemently against contact with the Arotanti. This prejudice, though not held with the same violent emotions, was still felt by the majority of Denis society, a society that was very ethnocentric as well as xenophobic. These feelings and opinions remained prevalent up to the fall. We learned about the origins of Yisha's journey ages, who created them, and why. We learned about Agaris, the architect of the fall. His motives were neither ethnocentric nor did they stem from xenophobia. He was driven strictly by revenge. Revenge for being wrongly accused and convicted of a crime he did not commit. Revenge that drove him to commit genocide against his own people. Also, there were the beginnings of Atris, one of the heroes of the fall, the excavation of the great shaft, and of a friendship with Viovis, who would become one of the villains of the fall. We learned about a surface dweller named Anna, her life and how she came to find the cavern, and those same old Denis fears of the Arotanti, the outsiders, and their possibly corrupting influence on the Denis populace. We learned of Anna's time in prison, her learning the Denis language, and of her uncertain future. We learned how Anna came to live with Atris' parents, while the five lords debated on what should be done with her. We saw how Viovis, through his arrogance, assumed Anna would not come to his first book celebration, when he invited Atris' family. And we learned how Atris took exception to his friend's snubbing of Anna and, in turn, snubbed his friend for making him choose between the two. And finally, deciding to write an age with Anna. We saw how, after living and working together, they fell in love, and how that love alienated Viovis, causing his anger to burn brighter than ever, and bring an end to his friendship with Atris. We learned about the birth of Gen, and how Agaris was a master forger, known as the philosopher to the lower city. We learned how Agarus' forgeries led to the distrust between Atreus and Veovis, and the latter's becoming accused and convicted of a crime he did not commit, stripping him of all he had known. This brought great shame not only on him but on his family as well. In fact, the shame was so great it ultimately affected his father's health, hastening an early death. In addition to this, his friend Suanir could not be found. As Veovis' trial ended, so too did his father's life come to a close. Though Atreus blamed himself for setting the great wheels of the Denis stayed in motion, wheels that could crush a man as easily as their great hammers pound the rock, it was actually Agarus who set this masterful, though evil, plan into motion. We learned about Gen's early years and how his relationship with his mother went from being very close, basically he was a mama's boy, to becoming distant, and is becoming enamored of the knowledge possessed by the guilds, in turn causing him to start identifying more with his Denis heritage than his Arotanti heritage. In short, the beginnings of his pride. Last time, we watched as Agarus' plans for revenge began to unfold. He had made changes to one of the 5 great ages, called Classics, that was written by Master Talishar, making the age unstable and likely to self-destruct. He had collected Korvakti, linking books, that had been written using Cortinia, or blank books, that had been stolen from the various guilds. Using these books, they, Agarus and Veovis, were able to commit various acts of terror throughout Denis. Anna, having seen Veovis, who was supposed to be locked securely away in a prison age, followed him to his and Agarus' redoubt. There, she saw the stockpiles of Kravakti and Cortinia, and knew that she had to stop them then and there. She was setting a trap when she watched in horror as her beloved Atreus was thrown into a cage suspended over the murky green sea of their secret age. Tonight, we will learn of a husband's rescue and a plan for revolt. Tonight's story opens approximately midway through the Denis year of 93-99, approximately 1743 AD. While Suanir was left to guard Atreus, Veovis and Agarus chatted while returning to the mansion. As they walked, they discussed the trap they had just laid for Anna. Agarus didn't understand why Veovis had wanted to get Anna as well. "Vengeance," was the reply. Veovis wanted them to suffer as he had suffered, to be tormented as he had been tormented, to feel betrayed as he had felt betrayed. Agarus said that he understood, for when he had lost his guild membership, he had also lost the woman who was betrothed to him. In Agarus' mind, she was the most beautiful woman in all of Denis. Agarus admitted to Veovis that he wanted to destroy Denis the way the Denis had tried to destroy him. Veovis admitted that he knew just how Agarus felt. Agarus was slightly surprised. Agarus was slightly surprised. Veovis took him to a long, low-ceilinged storage room. The walls of that room were lined with racks of guns and swords. Veovis reminded him that he, as the philosopher, had once written that if the masses in the lower city were armed, Denis would fall overnight. He asked if this would do. Agarus commented that he had misjudged Viovis. Meanwhile, Anna knew that she had to rescue Atris first, before she sprung her trap. She saw that there was a sole figure guarding her husband, Suanir. Having pocketed the sleeping agent from the laboratory, and a hand file for use as a possible weapon, she crept along the access tunnel. She snuck up behind the traitorous maintainer, and smashed the file against his head. She then poured the sleeping agent over his face. With him now unconscious, she set about to free her husband. Unfortunately, the cage and padlock were much too strong for her to pry open with the file. She realized that she needed to spring her trap, escape, and return with help. She left her now unconscious love, and returned to the mansion, and to her trap. Agarus was watching Viovis assembling a collection of incendiary devices. The latter explained that they were not for the direct purpose of terror, but to destroy the linking books after they were used. That way, they could link into Denis at will and leave, destroying their means of escape afterward, and preventing others from following them. It was at this time that Viovis informed his friend that weapons should be used only when necessary, that what was truly needed was a poisoned dart. It is assumed that he was referring to pinpoint strikes in Denis, but that is only conjecture at this point. Any other meaning, if there was one, is now lost to the pages of history. At Viovis' suggestion, Agarus got up to retrieve the map of Denis from his study so that they could make their plans in more detail. As he entered the study, he saw, of all people, Tiana. He drew his knife and told her to turn around very slowly. She started to at first, and then, with a quick and sudden motion, she threw her arms up in the air towards him. All Agarus saw was an expanding shadow of wings, beak, and talons as the hunting bird that had been securely caged was released into his face. As the bird attacked him, she ran to the room where she had stashed all of the linking and blank books. Locking the door, she mixed the various chemicals that she had procured from the mansion's laboratory, and poured the mixture over the books, along the floor, and soaked the doorframe. Finished, she returned to the desk with the linking books she had found that would take her back to Denis. At some point during her explorations of the mansion, she had come across the linking book to the mansion, and, though the histories are unclear as to what point this occurred, she had pocketed that as well. She knew that Viovis would have heard Agarus' screams and would be searching for her. With her plans in place, she unlocked the room and hurried behind the desk and lit a wick to wait for him. A few moments later, Viovis kicked in the door and burst into the room. With a gun drawn and aimed at her, she hovered her left hand over the linking book back to Denis, and her right hand, with the glowing wick, over the saturated books. Viovis quickly assessed the situation and told her that if she surrendered the book, he would spare both her and Gen, but the rest of Denis must die. Smiling, she simultaneously dropped the wick on the pile of books and placed her other hand on the linking panel back to Denis. Viovis roared, firing his weapon into her disappearing form. So focused on her was that he didn't notice the trail of fire heading towards the door behind him, until it exploded in flames. Meanwhile, the five lords were in a private meeting in the council chambers. Echoing what Master Jaderis had told him an hour before, Rhaenyra declared that every room and every desk drawer must be searched throughout Denis, searching for hidden linking books that might be used by Agarus and Viovis. Though they had neither the time nor the manpower to conduct such a search, still the attempt must be made. At that moment, the air shimmered in front of them, and Anna appeared. She quickly collapsed, a crimson stain spreading over her shoulder. She had been shot. As Rhaenyra bellowed to the guards to get help, another figure appeared, with blackened face and clothes aflame. Rhaenyra recognized him at once. Viovis! Please join us next time as we learn about the sentencing of a traitor and the final fall of Denis. The end. You're welcome, Honora and Kiwi. Oh man, that sucks for Caver. Hopefully he was able to listen in on your computer, Cave Woman. You're welcome, Melm.
He's having the devil's own time. I don't know why.
You're welcome, Cat Yo.
Not having supposed to. After about
Good night, Honora. Sleep well and have a blessed night. Shwagabatoti. And thank you all for coming tonight. Good night, J-Trig. Oops, he already poofed. And time to close out the video right now.